everyone. Good afternoon. Hi. My name's Whitney Friedlander. I'm a journalist out in Los Angeles, just hanging out with you guys, but I know that applause wasn't for me. It was for our captain. So, Toby, what was it like to see everything on stage, to see everyone's reaction toward the end?
Well, I mean, as long as they're clapping, I'm happy. As long as no booing. Yeah.
Thank you guys for being a polite audience for that. So we all want to know, how was the casting for this?
Well, I can only speak personally, but I had worked with Neil Marshall, who is the director and one of the creatives on the show, on a series that I'd done, Black Sails. He had directed the pilot of the first season and another, I think it was the third episode in the first season. And so I got to know him on that, and then hadn't seen him in years, and I suddenly got an email from him saying, hey, I'm working on this show, Lost in Space, they're reviving it, would you be interested? And I mean, initially I was like, Lost in Space, they're reviving that? That's really, I don't know what to think of that. So I emailed him back and went, look, send me the script. I'm intrigued. So he sent me the script, and I really genuinely enjoyed it. I had not grown up watching the original series. Obviously, I know it from pop culture, and I knew enough about it to have a sense of what it was. And so reading the script, it made me feel, well, look, it's the same premise, but it feels very different, and it feels very current. And I really like the dynamic of the family itself. So I got back to him, then my agent became involved, and then I had a conversation with SAG-AFTRA where he told me basically the arc of John in the story, and I really liked that. I mean, I can't tell you too much about it because obviously it's a spoiler, but basically it's the family's journey not only to survive but also to survive each other, as it were, or to become a better family. There's obviously some kind of dysfunction going on within the family dynamic, and it's about them striving to survive that, as well as just surviving on this hostile planet. So then they made me an offer, which, I mean, as we all know, I'm sure, is one of those things where you they rarely happen, and when they do, you just breathe a huge sigh of relief that you don't have to jump through the million hoops that they normally ask you to jump through. So I was incredibly grateful for that. Yeah.
And as you mentioned, this is not the first time you've played a captain.
Indeed.
You also did not have much time between Black Sails ending and this one starting, right?
I had a few months, which was not nearly enough for me to recover from what they'd put me through on certainly the last two seasons. Actually, all of them were totally brutal. Yeah. But what this was actually a really lovely antidote to that, because although I mean, I loved Black Sails and I loved the character of Flint and I loved the experience, it was, by the end, I was like, this is really tough. It's just, it was very exacting in many different ways, physically, but also mentally, because his journey was such a dark journey that you can't help but be affected by that, and you carry it around with you, and the conditions were really tough as well. It was really, I mean, we're in California, but Cape Town, it gets very, very hot during the summer when we filmed, and it was long hours and all that stuff. So when I started doing this, it was actually just like, oh, this is so much easier, I mean, and actually, after Black Sail was like, I could do anything and it would be a breeze. You know what I mean? And you have these directors going, I'm really sorry to put you through this, and you're going, what? This is nothing. I mean, so yeah.
Was it hard to shake off, or was it hard to get into this character after you'd shaken off Flint?
Not really. I mean, I think what I identified immediately, and when I first read the script, and when I started working on it with Molly and the kids, was I'm a parent and I'm a husband and I have 3 kids, and I had spent a lot of time away from my family in South Africa filming. You know, it's part of the industry now. You do spend a lot of time away from home. And I had spent months at a time away and then had to come back and fit into a domestic situation that had moved on since you last left or last been there. And also just I really felt the distance from my family. So when I started playing a character who had spent a lot of his time away from his family on these military operations or whatever, and had grown distant from his, certainly from his son and from his wife, and had to, you know, and rebuilding that relationship. That was something that I could really empathize with, and so it wasn't really something that I had to, you know, reach for. It was something that was very present in my life during that time.
Did you also talk to anyone in the military?
Well, I actually did I'd done 2 films, one of which has been released, 13 Hours, and also another one that's yet to be released, where I'd played. I mean, I was like going, why at this stage of my life am I suddenly playing Navy SEALs? I mean, surely this should have happened when I'm like in my 30s and really able to do physically what they're asking me to do. Now I'm sort of tragically struggling. But so I certainly on 13 Hours and on Hunter Killer, I had done a lot of training with guys, both on, you know, on Hunter Killer we had to do all these sort of maneuvers and stuff, and actually because there was a lot of real kind of us kind of moving through various terrains, kind of doing, and it had to look like we were serious and knew what we were doing. And then kind of like going through buildings and doing all of the stuff that, you know. So I'd done quite a lot of training with special forces people. So it wasn't. I didn't need any extra, certainly. Yeah.
Also, you have training with kids because you have kids.
Yeah.
What was it like to actually work with children again? Did you have to start like watching your language on set?
Yeah, that was really. It had sort of, it was a bit patchy, that one. It sort of came and went. I'd suddenly go, I'm so sorry, and stuff would come out. But I wasn't the only one. It was everybody. I mean, it was the director, everybody.
Did you have a
And they were like going, don't worry about it, it's fine, you know, really.
But there's also, John has to make some important decisions, especially in this first episode. You know, he's got to decide which kid to save. How did that feel when you were doing those scenes?
Well, I mean, when we first started it, I remember Molly and I had conversations with SAG-AFTRA about this, where we were going, because I think, you know, inevitably at the beginning of any series or any film, it's about striking the right tone, and everybody's worried about whether the tone is right, and especially with a family show like this. And the fact that you'd had, you know, it had its previous incarnations, especially the original one, which, you know, humor was a big part of that. And they were like, and so they were very aware of wanting to make it too serious. But we were constantly saying, well, you know, but we're in this terrible situation where our kids could die. We could die at any moment. And our kids could die. And the stakes have to be real, because if they're not, nobody's going to really care. And so we kind of decided, right, we're just going to play all of these situations for real. And I mean, you know, being a parent, it's easy to relate to. I mean, I've never been in a situation, and neither of my kids, thankfully, but in a situation as extreme as are in this show. But you know, you can easily relate to that as a parent.
There's one scene in particular where you just decide Will's the one who's got to go back in the ice and get it, but you don't want to be like, well, Will, off you go. So how did you talk about how to do that scene in particular?
Well, I mean, we didn't actually talk. I mean, it was more like I threw stuff at the wall, and generally it was generally they went with it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was just like, look, this is, I mean, of course, it's the worst situation to be in, and so, it has to be played as that. It's just all the way through. The stakes had to be high, and with the family as well, with his relationship with Maureen, with his relationship with the kids, the stakes have to be real as well.
Was that the hardest scene to film in the pilot?
I think the hardest scenes were on the glacier. Yeah, when we come back and we were digging away and doing all of that stuff. I mean, that was the first. Ironically, it was the first scenes that we shot in the whole thing. We're on the, and they were blowing all this fake snow at us all the time, and and it was made out of paper mulch. They had all these different types of snow. So some was made out of soap, some was made out of paper mulch. I mean, and some of it was real. And they kept on blasting us with all of these different kind of things. But that was pretty tough. And because, what is weird was, especially with the paper mulch, it gets in every single orifice you have. No. So it's in your ears, it's up your nose, it's in your eyes, it's like everywhere.
The costume department must have loved that.
Yeah. So the the acting was totally secondary to everything else.
Just surviving with paper coming out of your nose.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the first thing you had to film. You all had to be a family that had grown up together. Was there something you did off screen to kind of get that familiarity?
We rehearsed a bit. I rehearsed a bit with Max, and we hung out a bit with the kids. But actually, we were thrown right into it, and it's testament to them. Actually, testament to the kids that they cast. Sorry, I'm going to move so that I'm not quite so angled over there. The kids they are absolutely adorable and amazing, and they really cast these fantastic, and their parents were lovely as well. So there was a great sort of feeling on set because everybody talked to one another, and you got to know the parents, and they got to know you got to know the kids, and they were just so professional and you know what? It was such a great antidote actually, because I realize how not cynical, but how jaded one can become sometimes. And I'm in this spacesuit, and I'm complaining about how uncomfortable it is, and and then lunch has gone 2 hours over, and I'm really hungry, and that there's the knee patches are digging into my knee every time I have to kneel down, and then suddenly you got Max Jenkins, who plays Will, jumping around going, "This spacesuit is so cool," and I'm like, going, "Oh my God, I'm such a miserable old, I just, and it just lightens it all, and it was such a breath of fresh air, having been, on set with all these miserable, salty pirates for 4 years, and then I got these kids, and it was delightful, and then it made it so easy to slot into these roles. And I particularly with Max, because I have quite a lot over the season. I have quite a lot with him, and I just loved working with him. It was great.
There's also, toward the end of the episode, you see that John and Maureen may not be as happy and lovey-dovey as we thought they were when they crashed. What was it like to film those scenes, and what can you tell us about that?
Well, I loved working with Molly, and as I was saying earlier, we had meetings with SAG-AFTRA, the creator, the showrunner, early on, and the writers, and we were just like, look, let's figure out what is going on here, because it was trying to make that relationship as real as possible. And I really loved the fact that it's not some apple pie family that's just everything's perfect. And, that things are, but without it becoming really depressing. They are people who are trying to figure things out. They're trying to figure out each other out. How are we going to live together in this situation? How are we going to restore our relationships and make them positive amongst this crazy, situation that they're in, and there's and that's what I really like about it. It's aspirational, it's about people trying to be better people, and I love the fact that the kids are so bright. It's like I actually let my kids watch this first episode because they sent me a screener. I was like, I've long ago given up being objective about things that I'm in because it's just impossible, and whatever expectations you have of things generally don't go the way that you want them to. So I sort of given up on that, and I let them watch it, and they absolutely loved it. So I was like, well, that's the target audience, really. So I mean, and they're going to tell you if they don't, like something, they'll tell you for real, So they dug it.
Did you let your kids watch Black Sails?
No, they haven't watched that yet. My son kept on saying, when can I watch it? I was like, not for about another 5-6 years, maybe. Then
for your 18th birthday.
Have to really explain things. Yeah.
Tell me also how you developed the accent for your character.
Well, I grew up actually in the States. My mum came over here and worked extensively in the States and Canada for quite a long time, actually. So I was at school in LA for about 4 years, and then in Canada for another few years. And so I learned very quickly, because that was back in the 70s, and we were a bit of a rarity here. Not so much now, but we were very much a rarity over here, Brits, in the 70s. So I had to very quickly adopt an accent, because I was teased quite a lot for the way I spoke. I mean, it's natural enough, but I had to kind of I had to figure things out. So it wasn't and of course American movies and TV and all of that is so much part of our the texture of our lives that it's for me, it's I love being able to slip in and out of accents. So.
Obviously, because it's on Netflix, we get to watch all the episodes all at once. In fact, in a few days, everyone can go home and skip the first one because they've already seen it and watch the rest of them. So how much did you get the scripts ahead of time as well?
Well, first of all, I got the first one for a very long time. I think they thought, well, if we give them any more, they might not want to do it.
Oh no!
So we were safely ensconced in Vancouver in the studios, and then they handed us this stack of about another 5 more, I think, and then we did we went away and gobbled them up, and then came in and read them. Did a big reading of the first 7, I think, and then the last 3 so then 8 and 9 dribbled out about 3 weeks later, and then the last one didn't come along. The final episode didn't come along because I don't think they wrote it until right towards the end. So that was we were all like, what happens, but yeah.
How did that affect your acting choices then?
Well, I mean, in this series, what's great is you just live in this. It's actually quite. You just live in a kind of like, well, I don't know what happens next, but then we don't, do we? I mean, I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow or the day after. You just have to. And in a way, knowing what happens, sort of, it can affect the choices that you make. So it's better sometimes actually being ignorant of what does happen.
Right, because things like you get to speculate what happened with John and Maureen and why they're not friends anymore.
Yeah,
why they're not getting along.
Exactly.
Speaking of your mom, I mean, obviously you come from a long line of actors, and both of your parents have played iconic roles. Were you concerned about taking on another iconic role after they've done it, or did you talk to your mom? Talk to your mom about it.
I mean, the thing is, it's odd. I mean, we do talk about it, but she's always sort of gone, well, you get on with your I don't want to interfere, because also it's a generational thing. Things are so different from when she was my age making choices. So she kind of normally stays out of things, but she's very supportive of whatever choices I do make.
I do have one question from the audience who did not put their name on it, so I'm sorry. We'll say your name's John Smith. They wanted to know, do you have a method that you like to use when you're acting?
Do you know, I haven't got a specific method, because I think everything, the method I normally find a method within whatever piece of work I'm doing, because it changes from job to job to job. I mean, literally, things make different demands on you. So, for example, Black Sails had these very, very long and intricate dialogue scenes, as well as these big physical set pieces. And it was a very strange discipline, because you would go from one literally to the other within the space of, they go, right, okay, we finished that scene. We're going to go and do the one where you beat up 5 guys and get your head smashed in. And so you would go from doing these very intense, long dialogue scenes to then being thrown into these physical things. And the demands of doing these very long dialogue scenes were, I'd never really had to do that before in filming, because normally the dialogue is quite tight. And you'd have these big speeches to learn. And I remember originally when I was going through the script going, as any actor would go, yay, I've got a big speech. It's like 2 pages long and I can do all kinds of things with it. And you'd go away and you'd learn it and then you'd do it. But then towards the end, I was like leafing through scripts going, oh, Jesus, I've got another speech. I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I can't learn it. I can't fit it in my head. I have no more room left. And so that really took a lot of technique and a lot of, because it's also, how do you take stuff that's very written and make it, and I'm saying that with deep love about John Steinberg and the writers, because they did an amazing job, but it was very written, and it was like, how do I make this sound like this is the way I talk every day of my life? And there's also a balance between, I want it to sound like I mean it and that I speak this way all the time, but at the same time, I want this has to be epic in its scope, and it is epic in its scope. So how do you deliver that? So that took a lot of work. So it required a certain kind of discipline and method. But then coming to something like this, which is much more spare, and the character is much more ensemble, so you get glimpses of people, and it's about, how do I tell? Because what I like about this form is that characters are revealed. You've seen one episode, and you kind of get glimpses of people, and you're still figuring out, well, who is John, and who is Maureen, and what kind of people are they, and as the series goes on, more and more is revealed, and perhaps preconceptions that you've had of characters are then spun on their head, and you go, oh, he's not really that. He's something else, or he's trying to be something else. And I like that, but you have to know how to tell that story in very small increments and be very clear about your choices and very nuanced in your choices to make it satisfying for an audience. So it required a completely different kind of discipline, and so your method, I think for, and I'm sure many of the actors here will agree, that really you have to rely on instinct for these things. Your instinct is your instrument, and your intuition, and those things are you kind of. The best thing that you can do is follow those in guiding you about how you find a way through to the work.
You brought up a good point about your character. He's not like your old sitcom dad. Like, he's not Mr. Fixit. He's not perfect. Was that something that interests you?
No, and also in many ways, he's almost the least qualified person to be on this mission because they're all like so
His
much
kids are
more.
geniuses.
Yeah, and like it's not like he's some dum-dum. He's very capable, but it's a kind of capability that actually has, it has a certain functionality within the group, and the others have all of this have a lot more facility than he does in certain areas, and I really like that. I really like that in the show, and if you do watch it, there are sequences later on where the kids figure out things or manage. They have to troubleshoot because they're on their own and they don't have anybody with them, and they manage to do this. And that's what I mean about it being an aspirational show. I mean what I think I was trying to say earlier when my kids watched it and I was watching it with them, I was going, what's great about this is these kids are really bright and intelligent. And if I was watching that when I was a kid, I'd go, I want to be as bright and capable and intelligent as you are. And so that kind of hopefully will lead to them working harder in school or whatever. But I like that because it's, that a lot of the stuff that's around at the moment, is very dark and depressing and brilliant. A lot of it's brilliant, but it's pretty dark and depressing. Whereas this is kind of uplifting and energizing and kind of positive.
Do you have any desire to go to space yourself?
Do you know what? I used to. And if somebody could guarantee that I'd be 100% safe... and there was no risk involved at all. I'd be on that spaceship first thing. But, having 3 kids, I'm like, I don't want to die. So at the moment, no.
That would make it an excellent headline, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Great. Well, I think those are all the questions I have. But thank you for joining us.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.